Hey everyone, Morgan here. We're going to be talking about Album of the week of May 18th, and it's a doozy this time. We are talking about Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits. Now, this album was released in May of 1985. This was 35th anniversary. That's kind of why I chose the album. And this album was recorded from October of '84 into the studio. It was recorded down in the Caribbean on the island of Montserrat, and a wonderful studio that no longer exists. It was wiped out by a volcanic eruption, actually. Uh, and Dire Straits was really the brainchild of Mark Knopfler, and they'd been around for almost 10 years and had some really good rock and roll stuff out there. Kind of a unique style, kind of hard to describe exactly what the music is. And Knopfler was willing to experiment, and he decided to use a completely digital recording device to do this 24 track. It was the first real rock and roll album that was released that was completely digitally recorded, so it just sounded amazing on compact disc. It was one of the very first CDs that I bought when I got my first CD player. Actually, I think it was the first day I had a CD player, I bought it back in about 1988. So Knopfler was very well known for playing the Fender Stratocaster, and he wanted to have a different sound for one of the songs, and he got a Gibson SG and wanted to sound exactly like Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top. ZZ Top was huge right then. They'd they'd released Eliminator a couple years before, and then Afterburner, and they were all over MTV and the charts. They had a great sound, and he got a pretty good representation of that Billy Gibbons sound. So the track that he played that on became famous, really, really famous. A song called "Money for Nothing." And it was a landmark video for MTV, an animated mix of animation and live action stuff in it, airplay all the time. It was ubiquitous. You just found it everywhere in that time period. It's a great track. I don't think it's the best on the album. I think it's probably the worst on the album because it's a really great album. All the other tracks are just amazing. But it owned MTV. It took this album up to 30 million copies sold worldwide. The ironic thing is, when it came out in '85, the critics panned it. NME in Britain said it was terrible. Rolling Stone was not fond of it. And it took the airplay and people listening to it for them to finally realize, nah, this album really brought something to the party. Now, for me, it starts off with So Far Away and Money for Nothing and Walk of Life. But for me, the two really strong tracks on the album were called Your Latest Trick and Why Worry. Why Worry has a really great extended Stratocaster solo in it that you can hear. For Your Latest Trick, some great saxophone work. He brought in one of the guys from the Becker Brothers, two American musicians who they had toured with Frank Zappa and really strong horn players. And I think it was Michael. I'm not positive on that, but that Michael had played the sax work on it. Now, there's this funny story, and if you've seen the movie Wayne's World, you'll kind of understand it, that in the early 70s, if you went in to a lot of music stores and you wanted to play their guitars, test their guitars, try them out, they'd have a sign up that said, "No Stairway." They were tired of listening to people trying to play Stairway to Heaven, and just they didn't want to hear it anymore. Well, for Your Latest Trick, that was the track that everybody was walking in and testing saxophones with. It was really that popular. Everybody wanted to get that sound. It was really amazing. Nice long track, about 7 minutes. Why Worry ran a little over 8 minutes. So the album, when it came out as an album on vinyl, they had to edit the songs down. So you didn't get the same effect really as when you bought it on CD. It was much better on CD. And eventually they came out with a 5.1 mix for it about maybe 2006, 2007. And then went to a double album so that you got the full songs all the way through. It won a Grammy when it first came out for like Best Engineered Album, and then it won a Grammy again in 2006 for the Best Surround Sound Mix. Everybody seemed to have a copy of it. The Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, future King of England, even said it was one of his favorite albums. It was sitting on his turntable. Now, the album cover is very simple, but I want to talk about it a little bit. The guitar that you're seeing on there is Mark Knopfler's acoustic guitar from the National Guitar Company. And they only made this model from 1931 to 1940. And it is made out of metal. It's not made out of wood. And it has that really country, twangy sound that country music is so well known for. And Paul Simon even talked about in the song Graceland, which we featured a few weeks ago. One of the lines in Graceland is, the sun was shining like a national guitar. And that's what he meant. He's talking about these metal guitars and how you would reflect off them. They really looked cool on stage and had a very unique and different sound. And Knopfler was very much into finger picking and was really good at using those sounds. Okay, so well worth checking out. Dire Straits, they're not around anymore. They split up in the early 90s. Knopfler is still touring, still playing the songs as a solo act. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame about 2 years ago. It was a controversial thing, not that they didn't belong there, but nobody showed up. Band didn't show up. Nobody did an introductory speech. Knopfler didn't ask for anybody to. They just kind of showed a film about him, and that was it. So a lot of hard feelings in the band, unfortunately. I think it's a band that you'd really like to see get back together and like to see them tour again. Okay? So check it out. Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits. All right, so Morgan signing off till next week.